Dun, 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 dun.
Doing the Macarena.
Well, that's not the Macarena. I'd be doing like this. I don't know. I forget all the moves, but it's something. Yeah, right.
Right.
Maybe Smooth ears ought to do it. Yeah. All right. As you can tell, I didn't get my full complement of sleep last night, so I'm going to be excited and fun today.
How's it go? Sleep is for the week.
Yeah, we had a late start doing karaoke last night, so I didn't get to sing until like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and that starts to really cut into my horizontal time getting back home. So
horizontal time. I like it.
Well,
yeah, it's accurate, right?
Unless you're in space, unless you're sleeping in space or hanging from the side of a mountain, you're pretty much horizontal when you sleep. So, I'm just figured it's a good name for that. Hi, Simon. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. We missed last week, didn't we? That was naughty of us. Sorry about that, everyone. But we're back on track this week. Things happen, right?
Yeah,
I guess we'll just jump straight in. Let's go on to the do's and don'ts.
Sure, let's do that. Hey, so be nice, respectful, and constructive. Be happy, wise, and obsequious. No, so this is not just people randomly chatting. This is, in fact, a professionally done program. So we want to make sure everybody keeps the standards good here. Don't post anything if it's adult or rude or offensive. You don't advertise or promote anything unless your face is on the screen. If your face is on the screen, you can talk about anything you want. But if your face is not on the screen, again, that means like the chat room and stuff like that, we will eliminate anything that looks like a self-promotion there. Don't spam. Don't post the same thing again and again. In particular, since this is a chat show where we're taking questions from the audience that you'll be putting in by using Q: in front of the question. If you say the same question 20 minutes later, you just lost your place by 20 minutes in line. So don't do that. We see and witness all except any request that has a URL in it, which is messy, but that's just the way YouTube works. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. We do have ban hammers, and we do take care of our locals here, and do have a good time because we have a good time doing this. And so we really enjoy doing this. We're back week after week. Yay. How's that? That work okay?
Yeah, that works. I will say that you can post code, and you do that by going to gist.new. Now it'll take you to GitHub's gist page. Post your code in there, name the file .dart, and you get the syntax highlighting, and then just grab the hash. That's the hexadecimal string in the URL. Pop that in the chat, and then we can go look up that hash and find the code that you wanted to post and chat about or discuss in some way. Happy to do code reviews live on the stream. We'll do that. The way we'll format the stream this week will be 1 hour live Q&A, then we'll have a little break, and then we'll do on some live coding and code review and whatever else with actual code. So we'll split into 2 segments. So brief introductions. I'm sure you all know who we are, but we do this every stream. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can find me on Twitter and other places at Dev Angels London. Scott can't be with us today, sadly, but we have a Randall.
Yes, I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert. Just found out I've been renewed for my 7th year. So that's since the very, very, very beginning of the Dart and Flutter GDEs. In fact, I became a Dart and Flutter GDE even before they had the category. So I was a web GDE for the first 6 months, even though that isn't what I interviewed for. So that was pretty weird. But they just had to get me in the system.
You're old-fashioned.
I'm old school. I'm OG, as the kids like to say. Yes, right. And I am, for this show, I am the question magician, which means I am watching the chat, looking for you to put Q: in front of your question. I will flag that so that we can get back to that slightly later or a lot later, depending on the time of the show. And then we'll answer the questions in the order they're asked as close as we can. If your question is complex and takes 2 or 3 postings to fit it in, it's probably too complex for this show. Let's just say that up front. Nobody's going to pay attention. They're going to post 3-parters No, really, at that level, go to the Discord, go to Stack Overflow, ask your questions there. I'll probably end up answering them there because that's the other thing that I do all the time as a GDE is I'm paying a lot of attention to Stack Overflow, Discord, Reddit. Used to pay attention to Facebook groups, but I kind of gave those up. And just watching and Slack. And I watch messages go by and I try to answer them as often as I can. So if your question doesn't fit in one chat window here, it's probably too long. Just telling you.
And we also have a Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stream.
Hey, everybody. Hi. Glad to be back. It's been kind of an interesting month or so far this year. And anyway, hi, everybody. I'm Danielle Cox. I am one of the organizers of the group called the Flutteristas. And we've been announcing the stuff for our new conference. So that's kind of neat coming up in April. And yeah, so that's something I'm very proud of. And yeah, I was gonna say I probably need to rearrange this. So I leave it up there so everybody can see I do have dashes and the Sparky and stuff like that. But now I'm gonna bring it back a little bit more into me. Anyway, yeah. So and then the rest of the time I'm I lead a small team of Flutter developers at a startup called Hardly.
I will also mention that the Flutteristas conference later on in the year will be happening on this very channel, and you'll find the live stream link in the live section of the channel. So go subscribe, go press that schedule button, and you'll be reminded when it happens later on in the year. But that link is already for you to sign up to.
Well, and okay, so let me say a couple of other things. One of which is we couldn't do this without the Flutter community. So thank you all for taking a back seat for a day. But helping us do what we need to do. So that is exciting and neat. And the other thing I just kind of wanted to point out is just the fact that it's one of the things we do that's really special is we go all day. It's a one-day conference, but we try to make it to where everybody in the world has got a convenient time to tune in live and either give a talk or watch a talk and be part of it. And that's something I think is unique for us. And that's something we've done for our other conferences. And so, Flutteristas Conf 3, we'll do it again.
I remember doing a 28-hour live stream, Flutter live stream, a very long time ago, and that was tough. We need to do it in shifts because it's too long. But yeah, exactly. We'll get there. Right. So for the moment, let's also introduce our next guest, Raf. Welcome to the stream.
Yay! Hello, good to be back. I'm Raf. By day I do Flutter. By night I also do Flutter. Some Flutter stuff. when I have time, and I'm here to answer the questions on this professional podcast.
Professional, yes. Professional.
We're just volunteers here, but
we actually have an extra guest that wasn't announced because I just offered it to him. Matt, welcome to the stream.
Hey everyone. Yeah, the professional part just went completely out the window, guys. Y'all got me on the show. Professionalism be darned. It's done. It's done. Hey, I'm Matthew. Thanks for having me on, Simon. Yeah, I love dropping in, and I have been using Flutter since I think most of you who watch regularly have seen me pop on and off. But I've been using Flutter pretty much since the 1.0 release, and have never went back. Absolutely love it. My current interests are, basically making weird stuff with Flutter that shouldn't exist. So, I have a video that'll be coming out soon on like another creative use. So stay tuned for that. But that's Matthew in a nutshell.
Are we all 1.0ers then? Are we all version 1? Like
I missed by about a month and a half. I was in Feburary.
Ralph, you were around with 1.0, weren't you? Alpha and 1.0.
Me? Yes.
Yeah, Ralph. Who else am I talking to?
The other Ralph.
I was looking at chat. Yes. I was like 0.1, I think.
Yeah. Those heady early days.
Yeah, so 1.0 was December.
So here's a question.
I was in January.
Here's a question, Daniel. Did you hear about Flutter when the 1.0 release came out?
No.
So it was after that then.
Yeah, I went to basically the startup I was at doing PHP work and stuff was and some Kotlin, Android kind of stuff I was doing, and they were running out of money. And so I looked up and saw there was a dev fest about 3.5 hours away, went to it, met Emily,
Fortuna, yeah.
Met Laura Martin, and loved Flutter. Never looked back. So I missed by about a month and a half.
I actually discovered Flutter through Dart. I'd been playing with Dart for 4 years prior to that and teaching classes and stuff on Dart because I thought Dart was going to be the replacement for JavaScript. And I was really happy about that because I hated JavaScript. And
Dart should have been the replacement for JavaScript. That's my hot take.
No,
I mean, it was.
see it sort of was.
Right. That was the initial concept, right? Dart to replace JavaScript in the browser. Didn't kind of work out because some browser vendors went, no, I don't want to put new language in my browser.
Yeah, really.
To be honest, I feel like that the actual language in a browser should always been agnostic, kind of like, you can put plugins into your browser for different languages if you wanted to, right? But, like it was the initial days. Like, anyone remember VB scripts? Those were the early days of browsers and Internet Explorer.
I do remember.
Stop swearing.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry. I said the words. Yeah. We don't say those words.
Don't say those kinds of words.
Speaking of JavaScript, I actually came to Flutter. I was aware of it shortly before the 1.0 release. I was actually investigating cross-platform frameworks and was in the process of teaching myself React Native. I hated every minute of it. Oh my gosh. And then I heard about Flutter, but it wasn't at the 1.0, and I'm like, and then it hit, and I'm like, nope, we're doing this. And it's been smooth sailing, quote unquote, ever since. I do feel like Google kind of copied React Native's homework a little bit, and then just made it better, but that's a conversation that I'm sure has been beat to death. So anyway, sorry, you were going to say something, Simon. I interrupted you.
Was I? I can't remember what I was going to say now, so it doesn't matter.
Never mind.
I
People
will
interrupt Simon all the time.
Just a reminder, get your questions in now. The queue in front of them in the chat, and then we'll get to them. We're just doing a bit of banter at the beginning, a bit of conversation to start things off and letting everyone get their questions in. Talking about
the thing I thought was kick ass though, and the thing that got me in Dart and then eventually led me over to Flutter was Angular Dart.
Oh, yeah.
Because I really thought that was a fascinating way to embed components that had some smarts to them, but used a really nice language other than JavaScript as sort of the glue between the components. And then my friend Wim Wheeler, the moment I said I wanted to write a book on Angular Dart, he just shakes his head and says, "No, you don't." And he walked me over to his desk. It's Google Portland. He walked me over to his desk at Google Portland. He showed me hot reload on Flutter, and I went, "This is game changing." And he goes, "We know." So that was my introduction to Flutter.
My thing is running the dev agency I run, Dev Angels. We were invited to Google's headquarters in London for this agency day, like collaboration thing, and Will Lima presented their Flutter, and so I'd heard about Flutter before that, and I disregarded it because, to be honest, the amount of cross-platform things that Android had been seeing. So I came as been an Android developer for like 15 years before that, and when was it, 2008, whenever that was, and then I literally disregarded it. I was like another cross-platform thing. It's going to be web. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be clunky, and then boom, out came Flutter, out came Will Lima in this presentation. I was like, hang on a minute, it doesn't use JavaScript. Hang on a minute, it's not web-based. This has me interested. And then I was like, oh, we can build for iOS as well as Android. Oh, this is a game changer. This really makes a big difference. And it was this kind of thing. Like, not many companies can pull off building a rendering engine that will output, your hardware commands to do your 2D interface, take over that whole process and have it work multiple platforms. That's not right. You had to have the smarts of doing the web browser, the Chrome team people coming in and doing Flutter, and all these various different components, Android, Chrome team, other people from across Google coming in and actually building this thing. So yeah,
those of us with some gray in our beard remember the early days of Java, and the whole promise of write once, run everywhere was not executed well in the early days. And
write once, debug everywhere.
Yeah, truly. And I feel like, coming to any cross-platform framework, those of us who are a little bit on the older side, we're naturally suspicious, of anything like that, just because some of us have been burned so incredibly badly by Java. But anyway. Yeah.
The closest I had before that was Perl. Perl was definitely cross-platform and definitely handy for lots and lots and lots of stuff.
Yeah, but it didn't have the UI that that
This
that Java.
this is the problem,
Pro
right?
TK.
So any UI on any of these platforms, Perl, PHP, Python, whatever the language, it was always here's a C++ library that does all this stuff. Plug into your existing framework, right? So you can use like a scripting language to drive some existing memory managed principles and techniques. And of course, it doesn't marry up very well. It's always clunky.
For some reason, I was just thinking of Swing.
Yeah, yes, rather Swing, right?
Not that I'm that old, of course.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
Yeah.
Dating myself.
I was in jazz choir, Randall, and I had to sing that, and I hate that song as a result. I've just told the world way more information than I ever should have about myself. There we go.
All good.
Never go to the internet forever.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to log off and just hide now. Everyone knows I was a choir boy.
You realize we are recording this, and we're going to be publishing it later.
It's out for posterity. It's out for posterity.
But now it's going to be a meme. That's going to be the best part.
It's right. YouTube clips.
Honestly, if you would have turned my face into a meme, that would mean the world to me. I think that would be. I would have accomplished my life goals. Yes, I would have. I would have accomplished my life goals becoming a meme. I could check that off my achievement list.
I hear you saying this now, but I also hear you in like a year's time where like people won't stop coming laughing in my face or saying this one line to me every single day. You'd be like,
that's fair.
It's not as nice as it sounds.
You'll be forever in a swing state.
Right.
Right. All right. So maybe we should bring it back to macros, right?
Yeah, actually, so this is it, right? So the big news this week was macros, and I have literally had the article. I was just saying before the stream, I've had the article open on my desktop for the entire week or so, and I've not even read one line of it. So I don't think we'll go through the entire article on the stream here today, but let me get that stuff out of the way. Where are we?
I have comments.
Well, I would like to hear your comments. This is.
Let's go through the article first.
So briefly speaking, from my understanding, having not read the article and all the information, is that what we had. So for those that don't know, we've been talking about meta programming and getting meta programming in the Dart language. This means that the code generation side of Dart can actually be more embedded into the way the language works. And there's been several components to this that make this work. And we've had little bits come out like benefits of pattern matching and some other things that have been coming into the system that are not exactly meta programming. Now, as it says here, they've invested significant time and resources into prototype macros over the past couple of years. Unfortunately, each time we solve a major technical hurdle, new ones pop up while we know this whack-a-mole game. At this point, we're not seeing macros converging anytime soon towards a feature that we're comfortable shipping and the quality of the developer time / performance we want. After considering the opportunity cost, in particular the features we could be shipping in the community instead, we've made it difficult to stop our work on macros. Which I think a lot of people would say that like a lot of people really don't like this decision for some reason. I'm like, what do you want them just to work on this thing and not do the last sort of stack of build up things of the last year and a half or whatever it's been, that things they've had to just sort of can't devote time to. For example, my items, I don't know if this is what they do, but multi-window, desktop multi-window is something that got put to the side a bit. And I'm like, I want this, right? And then other things have taken priority. There are only so many people in the team. We can always, I know we go this on every stream, but we are the community. We can always contribute. It's open source, right? But yeah, we'll come back to this and say that, it's great that they're actually going to spend the time back on things that we need as well. So, Dart offers combination of strengths, ahead of time compilation, performs typical static languages, fast development cycle, stateful hot reload. We've evolved Dart, being careful to evaluate language changes against both these rubrics. Powerful metaprogramming built on rich introspection has been a challenge in this context. Runtime introspection reflection makes it difficult to perform the tree shaking optimizations that allow us to generate smaller binaries. Static introspection, e.g. macros, can take a couple of forms. Most languages take a syntactic approach with limited static reflection on the syntax of the programs. We did not believe this was sufficient to achieve our goals. Instead, we aimed to build a macro system which supported deep semantic introspection on the program at compile time. Semantic introspection, unfortunately, turned out to be introduced at large compile time costs, which made it difficult to keep stateful hot reload hot. That's interesting. Okay, so basically, the hot reload piece is going to be basically totally turned on its head or ruined in some fashion. I'm seeing from this, based on the fact that obviously introducing metaprogram introduces like a bunch of new dynamic features that are just going to blow all that out the water. And to solve, it's not that it's not solvable, as we all know. Programming is that triangle of like time, money, effort, right? Like it's that kind of, you can spend all the money and time in the world to make something perfect, but no one has all the money and the time in the world, so you have to make a trade-off, right? We've concluded it was simply too far away from shipping macros with the developer time performance we require. Our current implementation regresses both editing, static analysis, and code completion, and an incremental compilation. The first step of hot reload. We're not confident we can adequately solve these problems in a reasonable time frame. Okay, so basically the static analysis and code completion in editing and incremental compilation were just completely screwed. Okay, cool. Right. Moving forward, we started to focus other features and we're confident about shipping. So yeah, again, like there's been, I tell you what, I saw today on a tweet. I think the most requested issue at the moment is getting the Flutter version in your output. so that you can on your about screen what Flutter version you were built with.
Why do you care?
Helpful. So well, no, it's definitely helpful. Maybe not on the about screen, but definitely when you're like throwing bug reports and things, there's like you don't know what you've been built with. You don't want to have to. Right now, the way we do this is with like injecting through this a lot of minutia that goes into the build pipelines, right? Being able to inject these things with like Dart defines, and you have to do all this stuff outside when literally that's basic, right? Like the version of software I was built with, the frameworks I was built with, that should just be available as a variable that just gets injected in at compile time, right? Exactly.
You might not display that to the public necessarily, but if you work with a QA team like I do, they would love that data, right? They want to be able to provide all, and I want them to provide that data because, you know, it's the only way I can effectively debug stuff. So like having it on a screen that QA can access when they're writing up bug reports, that's massive. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Simon.
Or for you say analytics in.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that, just to be clear on that, it's not that you can't do these things now, but it's just that it requires more effort from us, the developer, when we also feel these similar things like this should be built
the number of Dart defines that go along to get our thing to run because of this exact issue is insane. It's anyway. I want to move on to the next part because this is the part that I'm excited about.
Okay, I've not read this. So another area we'll be investing in is improving build times and overall code generation experience. This is what I think a lot of people wanted from the static metaprogramming, right? We've identified improvements for the build runner. Perfect. We've also planned to ship augmentations. So augmentations was a bit that we've already been seeing, which is some of the, well, let's go to it and see what it's all about. This was being able to augment existing classes, very much like macros, right? So this is parts of imports, augmentation declarations. Yeah. So this is a modifier augment, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're now adding augmentation declarations. We need to have a term that denotes the declaration which is not an augmentation. That is one of normal declarations that we've had all the time. We say that with declaration is not an augmentation declaration, is an introductory declaration. Okay. I want a code example. Is there a code snippet down here somewhere? Rather than just seeing all this.
That would be
augment class-like declarations, augment class. And then augment int slow calculation. So was this a mid? I'm trying to remember what this was now. This was like a mid tier between like extensions, right? Yeah. Augment replaces the augmented functions body with the augmented functions body. Okay. Is this more like runtime patching? It's a compile time error. No, it's not runtime. So.
It was clearly a component of macros because it wanted to transform source code.
augmenting with the getter, augmenting with the setter. Right, I'll pop this link, and we're not going to go through this, but I feel like this is quite an interesting one for augmentation. I'm going to pop this link in the chat for people that can follow up on it if they're interested, right? Because we don't really have the time to go through this entire document in detail. But this is the kind of thing that this is what they want feedback on. This is why they're in here. You can leave comments and you can give feedback to everything. So anyway, let's see. All right. A feature we prototype as part of macros. We believe the language feature stands on its own and will improve existing code generation.
Yep.
Yes, because this was like you output your augmentations. I'm not going to go there. I remember seeing some stuff, and it's been a while. We still aim to ship this feature independently. Brilliant.
There were packages for Perl that did a lot of this because, of course, Perl can poke itself to death. So that would be easy enough to do, but that actually provided this sort of like wrapper and before and after calls and all that sort of like stabbing and augmenting some underlying library to add additional features, hooks and stuff. So I'm sure it's similar because they also use the word augment in those libraries. So probably similar.
So I think this is just like part of it, right?
Yeah.
Honestly,
right.
Looking through this. Oh, go ahead, Simon. Go and finish up.
No, I was going to say, I just want to close shut this down to say, in conclusion here, like basically they're still interested in exploring the general sort of meta programming and what this means and cases that do not necessarily mean macros, but nevertheless, they're not going to be shipping in the foreseeable future. And thanks very much for the input. So this is, I'm not upset by this. I think this is like what we kind of expect from us, the seasoned maybe developers, but this is the kind of thing that happens all the time. You work on a feature, the business pivots or changes, and it goes on the shelf.
I, for one, am delighted, honestly, that they are focusing. Yeah, I am. I'm not that I have anything against macros. I think that there is a lot of value there. Don't get me wrong.
Macros, you always get in my job.
But I look at what they say they want to focus on instead of macros, and it moves from something that I may use under some rare conditions to something that affects my day-to-day development life. Improving build runner, my gosh, like build runner could use some help. I also think, and I didn't see it there, but when I read the article, I thought they said that they were going to work on improvements to Dart serialization and deserialization. I thought that was in there somewhere. Again, that's huge because I think and I love using Freezed, and that's like my go-to for data class management. But also, I kind of feel like Freezed is kind of filling in some gaps that should just be in the Dart library as a whole. And so, if they can do some things to kind of bridge that or improve it a little bit, I think that would be super valuable. And those are things that I think as a bog standard regular developer that's just doing the work day in day out, those have a much bigger effect on my developer experience.
I really on that serialization to serialization front, we picked up I think it was the stream before last, one of the packages we always talk about, the web package. Oh my god, Jasper.
Oh, Jasper.
PDF Jasper put together basically an RFP for a serialization deserialization package and system and set of way of doing things around this, because I mean it is when you build Flutter apps or Dart products and you're doing serialization deserialization, it's pretty much the only place you're dealing with dynamic, right? Only place where you're taking this data from outside of your app. You don't know what format it is. You have to get it into a format that is now known, and at that point dynamic goes out the window. You know exactly what you're dealing with, and it's always very error prone, right? You can do some weird and funky things. Having a better deserialization system where you can have like multiple versions of a model and like having automatically choose the right one, having the app type JSON RPC stuff automatically handled, and you just give it the JSON and it will find the right types from a red type registry or something. Like, these are things that they're not exactly language things, but having the language artifacts and things to help that process would be immense.
I've been helping a lot of people with serialization over the last month or two. It seems to be a big topic for some reason recently. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is the fact that people who design JSON APIs for REST don't think about the fact that if you change the shape a bit, I have to do something to react to that on my client side. And so is this a single item or is it a list of items? And the JSON will return either an item or a bracketed list. And
Welcome
you
to
go,
my
oh,
life.
but that's parsed to two entirely different ways on my side. And how do I want to represent that in the ultimate object for that? There's too much human intelligence required, even in understanding the variations of the incoming JSON payload as it comes in.
That's part of why I love GraphQL, is because the front end
Yeah.
has a little bit more control over the shape of data that comes back. But yeah.
Right. But this is a thorny problem, and people who only code in JavaScript on client side don't see this problem because they'll just go, oh, I got a blob. Oh, and this is true. So therefore there must be this list over here. They can get away with that because it's just JSON to them. It's like always keeping the original output of JSON decode in my app. And I don't want to do that because there's no type safety, there's no validation, there's no anything. You want to be able to convert the output of JSON decode to some internal object somehow.
I remember some original Flutter apps I built, and in fact, it was the way you just did things back then. There was this interesting notion, right? You would build your model object that would take a JSON map, keep that JSON map in the model object, and then just have getters that would get the field and cast it. But this meant that your app would fail not on the deserialization because the data was formatted incorrectly, but somewhere randomly in your app because when you do the call to getter, it fails. And we realized, crap, that's a bad idea. Don't do this. And I think it kind of goes on from that. Anyway, we've been talking quite a while, and I want to make sure we get to questions. So
we do have six in the queue, and we're already at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah. If people are interested in this serialization, deserialization stuff, I will say I'm posting a link to one of the Dart engineering team. I think it's the lead engineer. I'm not sure, and he does introduce himself. So I will say there's a Flutter and Friends link in the channel for learning something about Dart performance and optimization, where he actually goes into performance optimizing the JSON decode function, which was absolutely fabulous and really, really interesting. It goes to the inner workings of Dart, how language compilation works, the assembly side of things, and all sorts of stuff. So highly recommend that as an interesting side project and thing to read about. So let's get to the questions.
All right, let me find the first question once again. Okay, right there. What are your thoughts on Android XR and its future with Flutter? I have known nothing about that. Simon, I presume you do.
This came up last week, didn't it? And I've completely forgotten what Android XR is.
It wouldn't be last week.
This was the week before last. Yeah. No, this I don't know what this is. This is. Hang on, I'll bring. Can I bring up on stream?
This is like extended reality. It's like VR, but not. It's not VR, but it's like mixed reality. So Google Glass is coming back, y'all.
AR then.
Yeah, it's this.
Well, it's both actually.
It's both. Yeah.
Basically, it's the new AI powered operating system and all this kind of fun stuff. And I think this is great. But I don't see how this relates to Flutter. To be honest, it's like
okay. I actually can. Yes, I can. Okay, so essentially, if you look at, and I don't know anything about Android XR, but speaking on the Apple Vision Pro, essentially it is like a giant desktop that is sitting out in the universe, and you can get your Flutter apps running on an Apple Vision Pro. It's just like an iOS app. So if you compile it for iOS, it should hypothetically run on the Vision Pro. I don't know if it does or not. I'm saying what should happen, right? Because it should run any iOS app. So in that term, I guess you could talk about UI considerations for like how that type of thing works.
This is what I'm saying. It doesn't make Ed like its future with Flutter. Like there's some To be honest, when I hear these questions, my first one is, what is Flutter going to disappear because of Android's got this, or some other vice versa thing? I'm like, no, of course. Like it means that you'll be able to run your Flutter apps because they're Android apps on Android XR. And then we'll probably have some plugin or something that we can then introduce some of the APIs that Android exposes to the Flutter app so that we can integrate better with the XR AR experience.
So I don't want to derail because this is a Flutter show, not a mixed reality show. But as someone who has been a huge proponent, I would say even evangelist of VR, mixed reality, all that type of thing, I will be the first to say that we have some fundamental problems that we need to overcome before it really hits the mainstream. And the biggest one is headset ergonomics. I tried an Apple Vision Pro. It is the best VR headset ever put on the market. I couldn't stand wearing it for more than 30 minutes. And I don't understand how you're going to have an all-day work device when you can't stand to wear it for more than 30 minutes. And I've got a Meta Quest 2, same deal. We have a lot of technological hurdles that before I think mixed reality enters the mainstream. And so, as far as this future of Flutter, honestly, I think we need a device that like my mom would pick up and want to use before we need to worry about that.
I think I'm going to caveat this, and that's just say that what you've explained there to me is just the future of Android XR and mixed reality in general, right? Nothing to do with Flutter specifically.
Yes,
right?
I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying here, like it means nothing to Flutter. It means you run your Flutter, the Android apps, you can run them on Flutter. That's it. Like you'll be able to do everything you can do right now and still continue. It won't affect you in any way apart from maybe if the pattern is popular, you can start targeting your app towards Android mixed reality. There you go, done. Right.
It will probably be like the Wear one, like the Wear OS. You can basically compile your
exactly right. Like we just have another target, and we'll probably have some nice like ways of interfacing with it. Yeah.
And I want to challenge the statement you said earlier. You said this is a Flutter show, not a mixed reality show. Have you ever seen us before? We're pretty mixed reality, really.
That's fair, Randall. That's fair.
We'll tell you we're living in a simulation. We're not really here.
I'm just a bot. I'm just a puppet. There's nobody actually in here right now. All right, enough on that one. Let's go to the next one. That would be, what is the major difference between Impeller and Skia? I just realized that it's the new Flutter engine this week. Probably just realized it this week, but it's been the new.
I was going to say it wasn't just this week. Just this week we decided to change absolutely everything about it now. I think I'm gonna start off with giving a little bit of history, right? So we spoke about it at the beginning of the show. Creating a rendering engine is not an easy thing. I'm drawing some pixels, I'm drawing some dots, I'm drawing some images, sure. But suddenly the problems start compounding and it gets really complicated, especially when we start doing locale, different languages, different type setting, like it just skyrockets before you know. So since Skia is a graphics library made by Google that is used by Chrome as the rendering engine, there's like, okay, we're going to use that on building our mobile apps. It's there. Let's use it. It's a pre-made system. Then there was this kind of like, well, we have what we call Canvas API. This is what you get from Java. I can't remember what framework brought this in, but I remember it's specific from Java as well. And this is a notion of, in my app, I need to paint something. I need to draw something to this surface. And so I need this control over vector things like lines and squares and paints and boxes and whatever else. And that becomes the Canvas API. Now, these APIs can get all sorts of crazy. You get all sorts of things. Now, Skia has a huge amount of possibilities. However, to have that work cross-platform and be performant is another thing entirely. So, what they did was they put Skia in the engine as the underlying rendering engine for Flutter, so that when in Flutter you say draw me a box with the Canvas API, it will draw a box using Skia under the hood in the native code, in the C++ code, and it will take advantage of the platform specific behaviors. Like on ARM, it will be use the right instructions to be really, really performant, and it will use the graphics. It will use the various graphics APIs like OpenGL or Vulkan or whatever on the various platform, and it'll be nice and perform. However, there was this kind of demand from people in the Flutter community and various places saying they want these features from the graphics API, which Skia has, and like just really give us the Skia interface. And it's not that simple, right? And it also means that now you have to support this huge API surface, right? Especially when it's that low level. You can't get away from it that easy, right? So it's not like a widget where you can just go, oh, we're just going to build a different widget and then we'll deprecate the old one, right? You can't do that with like an underlying foundation API. So under the hood, they went, okay, well, Skia no longer meets the requirements and we can better make our own based off, all that knowledge we've got from Skia and everything else and all this backing, and we'll call it Impeller. And this will do the demands of what the modern UI frameworks need, right? So Skia was definitely built in mind of 2D acceleration, like old school and kind of where that goes. But now with more modern interface and everything else, we want more power out of our UIs. We want 3D. We want like good video and playback and everything. Like this, having the stream of multiple videos is not something that is just generally thought as just standard 2D acceleration. As much as you might feel that way, it's not. So when you start doing all these things in animations, you want to use the GPU and take all this advantage. So best to make something that makes sense for the modern world, and that's where kind of Impeller comes in. This is what I've gathered from everything over my time. In fact, this is my opinion, by the way. But there is great documentation on Impeller on the Flutter GitHub repository. There's some information there, Impeller channels and documentation around how it works. So the major difference is not much in that effect, right? Not much in terms of it is a replacement. It has been designed to be a replacement. So it will continue from our side of view inside Flutter as nothing has changed. It should do. And that's what they've really been aiming for. This first version, getting out the door, is you don't notice that you're now using Impeller. If you're noticing a difference, something went wrong, right? So now that Impeller is getting out there, now Impeller is a default on iOS. Now it's the default on Android, I believe.
Under flag on desktop and not going to be available for web.
Yeah. And now we kind of get into this point where Impeller becomes default. Then we can start iterating. So we start seeing things like Flutter GPU coming out because there can now be this control over the GPU pipeline and how we do things, right? With that low level interaction with the graphics processing unit, right? So hopefully now we're to the point where we got feature compatibility. We'll start iterating and seeing improvements and specific behaviors and things that are going to make sense to not mobile apps, that's wrong, to modern applications, as I say. Yeah. Any point on anyone else? Sorry, I kind of just want to take that because
no, I don't have anything to add other than you mentioned Flutter GPU, and I just wanted to say I'm super stoked for it. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think to that. Go first.
No, go. It's okay.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So adding to that, but I'm 90% sure that the major difference between Impeller and Skia is that Impeller compiles shaders ahead of the time.
Yeah.
And not on runtime. That's why you don't have those chunks and you don't need to run this long command.
So that was actually, it actually was one of the really big driving forces behind doing Impeller in the first place. They mentioned that. And that was, there's a big thing in the community which was shader lag, which was this kind of thing where on iOS, you would start up the application and there'll be lag in the first time animations are being run where it compiles the shader. But iOS did not give you this behavior where you could just have precompiled shaders and have them ahead of time. It's fundamentally just a different way of approaching it. So this is kind of again like, okay, let's precompile shaders, ship them in shader intermediary language, and then we can then essentially run them on Metal for iOS or Vulkan for Android and other platforms and so on. So yeah.
And you basically said this, Simon, but I want to make it clear. I have never once written code that cared whether or not I was Impeller or Skia. I can't imagine I will.
Yeah. You shouldn't have to, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why Solomon, like you were saying, you just found it now. It literally made no difference. It shouldn't make any difference. Yeah. But going forward, it should make a difference to what Flutter can achieve into the future, right? What we can do across all these multiple platforms, like things like actually being able to handle multiple windows, having multiple surfaces we can render to, all this kind of stuff is stuff that you couldn't do with the way things were built before, right? So yeah, we'll get there as a community and everyone together. Supporting the Flutter team. Yes, that's us.
All right. Next, how to make a layer that is floating in background mode, like Google Map.
In background mode, how to make a layer? Well, okay. There's multiple ways of understanding this question. So I think if you can provide some clarity. So one point here is you have like chat heads and things on your operating systems, right? Like where they're floating on top of the other apps and they're just there and you can use them. That's like floating whilst your app is in the background mode. There's that kind of thing. Or there's just like bring up a panel on top of your app whilst your app is running, which maybe is what you're talking about here. Making it
if
Oh,
I
good
can
enough.
interpret what I read that as, and
Oh,
I'm actually
please.
curious as to how to do it myself, is like if you have like start navigation in Google Maps and then you
Yeah.
minimize it and then open something else up, you get like that little square in the lower right hand corner
What is
that
called
continues
pip.
to keep your map up. And it's like, can we accomplish that with Flutter? If yes, I would love to know how to do that.
Yes, you can. In fact, there's a lovely package and plugin for that. It's actually
Ooh.
called Pip, which is picture in picture.
Ah,
So it's literally so we used to TVs and other things have had this for a while, where you can have two inputs and display them both at the same time, which is picture in picture. You have your full screen image, and then you can have another somewhere on your screen, another image of that content visible, the second input. So this is essentially the idea, right? So you can go back to leave your app and have your app still running in a picture in picture mode, and you can do whatever you want with your UI. So yes. But again, it's just a plugin. There is some packages. I've forgotten what they are off the top of my head, but we can go find them.
picture in picture was invented by people who watched a lot of sports and had a lot of competing teams on at the same time. That's what I understand. It's 20, 30 years ago for analog TVs.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I
seeing
never once in my life wanted to watch two things at once. But anyway, it's a thing now. People just everyone has picture in picture now. It's just on their phones. Like
Attention
the TVs going.
spans.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Now you were in jazz band. I was in marching band or jazz choir. I was in marching band.
I was in marching band too. So anyway, go on.
Okay, yeah. So, and I grew up in Oklahoma. So yeah, so I'm still like OU going on.
Okay.
Here, right? So yeah, there were plenty of times where I would want to have the game up to see what's going on, but watch something else.
That's fair.
So I actually did use it.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can guess your instrument. Since you were in marching band.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Piano.
You knew what you were getting into when you invited me, Simon. Trombone. I'm guessing trombone.
Guess again.
No, saxophone.
No.
Violin.
Oh look!
Yeah.
Hang on. Where is it?
There it is. It's right up there.
Clock.
It's up there.
You played a clock in a
lunchbox. You played the lunchbox.
Yeah. Above the lunchbox. Yeah, right there.
Clock.
I honestly can't see.
Clock,
It's not that clear here.
Anyway, and that's my clarinet case.
Oh,
clarinet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarinet.
So
I would have never guessed clarinet, Danielle.
Is that the ones that you kind of had to assemble into like?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's three pieces, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Two or three.
And in marching band, it's fairly useless just because it's not high enough pitch to carry, and it's not a brass instrument or even saxophone.
Yeah.
Those both have so the clarinet. We really were there for filling out the field. I think.
Moral support.
Yeah. No. The marching part was important. You need to go out there marching. And
I logged.
Yeah. What'd you play?
I logged on to clarinet once.
Simon desperately trying to get this back on track.
Yeah, back on track, people.
What did you play?
Barry sax.
Okay.
All right, come on.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, here it is. I mean,
Woo.
there's lots of
That's
packages.
what I played in
This
jazz
is
band. So there you go.
This is the kind of thing I think the question I was asking for, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is exactly, I think,
Yeah.
what they were asking for.
So there's plenty of packages out there.
Oh, that's dope.
I don't quite know if iOS has a picture-in-picture mode. I feel like it
does.
has added it recently, but
It does.
oh, look, picture-in-picture plugin for Android and iOS that can display any Flutter view 3 months ago.
Okay. Cool.
I mean,
Yeah, because you can do picture in picture with YouTube on your iPad, but you have to pay for YouTube Premium for it. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I found one, but I don't know, like if I can understand this one because
FLP.
I guess this is the English and the Chinese. I don't know.
Okay. Well, it actually says down that there's a problem still.
Oh yeah.
If you scroll right there, yeah. If the app's in the background, it'll stop at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, black
So
screen.
yeah. Again, these things are complicated, and see what you can do. But yeah, you can find a package that does picture-in-picture mode if that's what you're looking for.
Nice.
Maybe we could also explore what you do inside a Flutter app in terms of how you might achieve a picture-in-picture mode inside your application, because we could show you could do some cool stuff like that inside of.
We could talk about overlay layer. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. All right. Maybe let's put a peg on that one. What type of Docker setup, GitHub Actions would you recommend for a Flutter project trying to ensure less errors as opposed to fewer errors, I guess? Fewer errors before being pushed to production.
What's this one time?
So Docker setup, GitHub Actions to
Well, there's
reduce
official.
errors.
I mean,
Are you trying to set up a pipeline? Is that what you're trying to
well,
do?
I'm trying to
like
say
a workflow?
type of blocker setup on GitHub Actions. I mean, there are GitHub Actions for Flutter, and that set up your environment so you can run Dart and Flutter. The rest of it is really up to you. If you've got tests, run your unit tests. If you've got integration tests, set up your environment so that you can run integration tests and like instantiate a database, your backend, and as part of your test case, and then run your tests against that.
The one thing I would recommend is have those tests.
Yeah.
Just have the tests.
Tests, what are they?
I mean, that to me is the biggest part of all of that.
A good test harness is definitely really helpful. Like a good way to actually run your tests and not be held up by understanding things like async time and understanding that your test should be instantaneous, not like for example, I've seen this before. People testing timeouts. And they test the timeout by waiting the timeout period of like a minute during their test. I'm like, what are you doing? My tests take 10 minutes to run because I have 10 timeout tests. You know, like what? So yeah, like there's certain things of just setting up your environment so that you're not external factors don't come into it, right? And if you're testing external factors, you're mocking those external factors and validating what would happen when your network drops, when you're going to get socket exceptions and so on, right?
Yeah, I've seen tests that like are testing a widget that says good morning, and if they run it in the morning, it's fine. If they run it in the afternoon, it fails. It's like, you can't do it that way. That's not a good test.
I was trying to test a service once that tested whether it was a holiday, and I had a similar issue like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm an idiot. But like, I think looking at what Johnny Vanna is saying here, I'm wondering if this person is maybe new to CI/CD. Based upon that question. And so I would say the things that you want in your workflow, make sure you've got a Flutter Analyze in there. Make sure your linting rules are set up so that you're catching stuff like that. Make sure you're running Flutter tests. Make sure you have the test. And honestly, if you want to play around, I'm gonna plug an old company I used to work for. I think Bitrise still has a free CI/CD account, and if you want to play around with CI/CD in a very user-friendly format, that would be an option for you to take a peek at. So
that's cool. And if you're any kind of a team, you'd want to make sure you've got your GitHub rules set up too. That's not exactly what he's asking, but make sure that you're controlling what gets merged. I was
going to say having good analyzer configuration as well, right? Like you talked about running Flutter Analyze, but you can do things like have all your deprecation warnings be errors so that it'll break the build, or have the analyzer kick out a different type of error code. I mean, another good one for PRs and to put in your PR actions for GitHub is like just running format and validating that your format matches your expected guidelines, that there are no weird changes. Doing things like running things like you can do things like running pub-get and ensuring that there's no change in the lock files or that you've committed or something like that. Like there's other various checks that you can do that are more than just tests, right? Just another point. I know we talk about tests, but it may seem obvious to some. But run the unhappy paths as well. You want to make sure what happens when things don't go right. Don't just test how they should work. Test how they can break.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very critical as well.
And if I could like derail for 1 second here. Speaking of testing, though, do we have a good replacement for the Golden Toolkit?
The
eBay package that was.
Do we need a replacement? What's wrong with?
eBay discontinued it.
Oh.
And they don't have one listed.
Don't know. Not really. Didn't even know they're doing that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's.
I'm sure we'll find a Golden Toolkit Plus soon enough, and into the stuff.
Obviously.
Okay. Sorry for that. Take away from you, Johnny. But I mean, orange is sort of like gold.
Also, we're nearly at the top of the hour again, and I've got 3 more questions in the queue, so I'm probably going to stop questions now so we can get off to live coding fairly quickly. So, no more questions, please.
And it is top of the hour, so I think I'm going to go ahead and drop. I got to get back to the day job.
Enough.
Thanks to Ardley for letting me join in and on a regular basis here. So I will see you all
You're
later.
always welcome.
Good seeing you, Danielle.
Thanks. Good seeing you too.
Yep. Is that Raphael also waving away?
No, I just left. I have time.
You got time. You're still awake. You're still awake.
I'm
Keep
good for
bringing the
probably
caffeine.
another 10, 15 minutes. So.
Okay, good, because
sorry.
that'll probably finish our questions then. Cool.
I'll also pop in the chat if people are interested in what contests are. There's a link there to a bit more about that and what it is. In general, just briefly, the idea is that you take a screenshot of a widget or some sort of component of your application, and then when you run your test, you take a similar screenshot, and then you compare those. If the two are the same, your UI works appropriately and it's doing its right thing. If they're different, then you know your UI has behaved differently than expected, and therefore that is an error and your test fails. Right, moving on.
Yes, all right. So I've heard that Ginny is quite stable. How about live coding? Oh, that's a suggestion for live coding. To do Ginny.
What do you want to do with Jen? I mean, I mean,
code with it. Just
right.
Force it to do something.
Do something.
Yes.
Jen.
Add 1+1 over in native land. Yes,
Right.
that's always exciting. No,
let's do 1,000 instructions when we can just do one.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, great. Next question. Do you know a good EPUB library that's available for all platforms, or do you know if it would be hard to create such a library in Dart? I think there was actually an answer in the chat. Where
EPUB.
was that?
Interesting. Sounds like an interesting idea, actually. The EPUB format, yeah. I mean, there's two sides to this, right?
Or not.
You got passing the format, and then you've actually got displaying EPUBs, right? Two components of that. But yeah, I mean, actually sounds like a really good, because EPUB's an open standard, right? If I remember rightly.
EPUB View was suggested. So I haven't seen that yet. I didn't pull it up.
EPUB
EPUB _view. Yeah.
Should we go for a nose? Should we go for a nosy? Let's get rid of that for a second. EPUB. Okay. Pure Flutter. Okay. Pure Flutter. Non-native for EPUB documents on all platforms based on the EPUB package. Renders Flutter widgets, not native view on any platforms.
Wow.
Okay, so this means it will render on everything that Flutter supports. So EPUB 5 years ago. So this is an old, but based on this. So inspired by it. So this is actually a parser, right? So what we're saying is this is the parser which lets you extract all the metadata, but it doesn't exactly do rendering, right? Whereas this is EPUB View does the rendering. So this allows you to actually render the books. That's pretty cool. Images and all sorts. I mean, yeah, sounds good. EPUB controller, same as a controller thing.
Yeah.
Give it your document, open from an asset. I have no idea what an EPUB CFI is. Set start point. Okay, so this must be like an index, book index. So this is where inside the document you want to open up and start to.
You know what? I seem to remember a long time ago, someone really cool did a speech on Flutter with e-ink displays. And I feel like, someone with that type of expertise could probably use a package like this and just create their own Flutter e-reader from scratch. That would be
cool. That'd be cool. I
very
don't know who's done talks about e-inks or anything.
No idea. No idea.
Where will we ever find someone like that?
These are nice concepts. Like this is really cool. This idea now, to me, it's really cool that there's this notion that I'll give an example. So I don't know if anyone. This is going to take it back a bit. So it's that the same thing you have in programming, right? Where you have a platform, let's say PlayStation or Xbox or something like that, that is licensed and out of reach, right? But there'll be a point if you're interested in game programming, you work for a company, there'll be a point where you actually see a game that you made running on that platform, and you're like, "Wow, I can do that." And literally, there's this whole world of opportunities opens up to you, right? it was this feeling that I remember having very, very young when I was programming in BASIC. I'm like, and I was typing something, and boom, up on the TV came all these graphics and things that I was doing. I was like, wow, right? I think the same thing happened with mobile for me when smartphones came out and Android devices came out. It was like you had all the sort of Symbian devices of the time with Java and stuff, and it still wasn't accessible. And then an open source operating system comes out where you can write your own software from a mobile device that's in your pocket. Now we're kind of getting this thing with all like the maker sort of style things and electronics that now become more widespread with the internet and everything. Now it's like, well, you can go make your own device. You can go get like a Raspberry Pi module. You can go get a PCB manufactured. You know, you can just go make your own product that you want, running your own software. You are muted, by the way, Matt. Sorry.
That is something I'm so interested in. Oh my gosh. Like,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And being able to just think this thing into existence, because the hardware, the pieces and parts are easily available. You can get them, you can put them together. The software you need is all out there. You can use open source frameworks like Flutter or even like a Linux base to build it. Yeah, like I think creating your own e-reader from scratch would be like super cool, and it's something that would be totally possible to do. You know, it's
exactly.
Nice.
I just it's just find it really interesting the way that we can just do these things now, and like it's funny, like, and there's we talk about how simple it is. Simple is the wrong word. How accessible it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like it was not accessible before, right? Like it was so many unknowns. You couldn't even find a book on this subject in the library. Like there's no chance of you actually having this stuff. Now we have the internet and videos and YouTube, and like it's now these things are so accessible. Someone can just come and do whatever they want. And it works so easy, and Flutter helps drive that forward. Anyway, back to our topic, right? So yeah, do we know a good library? I think the one we just looked at looked pretty good to me.
Yep.
I think like most of these things, you know, if it doesn't support your purposes, then modify it, add to it, right? I mean, like this looks pretty comprehensive to me. Like, you know, they've got the entire sort of model, and you can get out images, and then they've got a bunch of builders which will give you back what you need. Yeah, I mean, why not? Right, having rich content and rendering rich content is just difficult, right? Like, I'm gonna show my age a bit. So always, and this has been like always, on mobile, having content wrap around other objects is exceedingly difficult. This has been found out on EPUB type readers for a long time. Having an image and having text trying to wrap around the image, like that you would have on web pages, is taxes the browser beyond belief. You don't understand like how difficult it is that when you change the size of your browser, it has to recalculate the position of everything, and all those embeds and the text is all dependent on each other. It's a really complex problem to solve. And I think like I was working on some of this stuff back in the day for some products, and yeah, it's just you don't see it ever on mobile for the reason of it's extremely difficult and taxing, and for no good purpose, right? You rather have side by side or above each other and keep things simple. But yeah.
All right, one last question here. Hey, and Simon, can you take off the banner at the bottom? I don't know how to do that.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. No more questions.
No more questions. We're done. 167 hours. Come back in 167 hours.
There's some live coding now.
Yes, no, just about. We have one more question. Yeah. I like this question actually. It gets asked about every 10 or 12 weeks. How can I ensure my Flutter attendance app always gets the correct time, even if the user changes their device time? Evil users. Yes. Use the NTP package. You get the exact correct time from the network.
Well, I mean, look, you can. It's nice to say
spoof the NTP network.
Well, no, you can go get NTP, but you need to know where in the world they actually are to effectively do that, right? Like, it's not like. I mean, you can go like you can do a broadcast to get NTP off network. They might not have NTP on their network, right? And then if they don't have an NTP host on their network, then you need to have a host to go to.
But wait, no, the attendance is going to be at a particular spot that they're supposed to be. And so it only matters what time's at that spot. So it doesn't. You're not. Geo is not a problem.
Okay, so if
Geo's not
you
the
coincide that with the place, if you know the place, then you know what time it should be. Then just use that time.
Yeah.
You've got where you can get the DST offset, and just say that's the time that you are. I mean,
Are you trying to record the time? I guess. Like, are they showing up opening the app and saying I'm here?
This question comes up a lot in chats on Discord.
I think the problem here is like if the user
people can change their device's time, and they use that to cheat about when they've arrived somewhere or disappeared from somewhere.
Simplest solution for me.
You just use something off the box for your time standard, which is NTP.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I just don't trust the device time. You know, just
I mean,
only trust server
when
time.
the API call happens, you get the server is the thing that records the time of when the API call happened. Done.
Yeah.
I think the difference here is that there's a difference here in terms of where you're getting the current time from and for what purpose. Because displaying to the user the current time is not the same as recording the current time, right? So as I just said, in this case, you record it as UTC, as the universal time. It is just a time, right? Then you have your time from UTC, your time zone, which is what you display to the user. That's their local time zone. So, for example, if they change their phone to being in Bermuda, then you're going to get Bermuda's, whatever it is, plus 3 hours or whatever the time is, right? So I'm going to get hate mail now for not knowing what that is. Anyway,
-3.
But the point here being is that it doesn't matter. It's when the action occurred, that's one thing. But when you display it to the user, it's always what they choose and their preference, right? It doesn't matter. You shouldn't care at all what the device time is set to. It should literally just used to format the times. So when someone says they're at 3 a.m. in the morning, well, they're 3 a.m. in the morning, wherever they are. Like that's their choice. Everything relates to they display to that. It's not going to change their the security around what's been done. If you're trying to do something like record attendance, well, then it comes from the server side, right?
And it hadn't occurred to me that you could be recording attendance as now, because the server always knows when now is, and that could be the thing that gets put in the record on the permanent record. So okay.
I'm going to bring in. There's a couple of last minute questions I'm going to add to the list, just to buffer the time out here. And it's a good one to end on as well. So
okay. So here's the next one. Are there any database records of all the Q&A live stream transcripts with index?
Yes.
So there is.
There is.
Christian's job. Christian's wonderful volunteering for all these decades now.
Decades.
I didn't even know this.
Parts of decades.
You can go to this repository. It's in the chat. Humpday Q&A questions, and you'll find a record of links and I think it's in JSON as well, of processable information about the questions and the answers and where they are in all the videos and links to all the YouTube. There you go.
And someone should write an AI interface to that sucks that down and lets me ask general questions, and it would point me directly at the place and date and time of the answer to that question.
If we did it right, you know what we could do is we could just do ourselves out a job. When a question comes in, it automatically works out as it's been asked before, what it might be, and then it just plays our heads on the channel like
right.
Like puppet.
That would be cool. That'd be cool. Yes, yes. With the Humpday has been replaced by Hump AI Day. Hump 80.
You know what? On the thought of me being replaced with an AI head that just talks, I think I'm going to go back to. I think I'm going to head out and drop off, guys.
Go be real.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. And I'll try to catch the live coding later. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Anytime, sir. Anytime.
So I just want to cover this. Sorry, before we jump on to Chain of Thought said, so let's use server time. What on the time zone? What of the time zone? I didn't get that part. So, always record without a time zone, right? This is just a good practice, right? You can do this in a number of different ways. You can record with local if you want to, but it just means that now you've got to translate essentially back to a 0 point and then back out to another locale, and it just becomes a bit more complicated to think about time zones, right? The best way is to always put all your timestamps in UTC. So that's +0. So there's no delta offset in what time zone the person's in, right? then that goes into your database, and that's what you store. Then when you display it to the user, you just adjust for their time zone, which means that, so for example, right now, it is DST. I think it's GMT the same. Because we're not in British summertime. Are we in British summertime yet?
No, it's cold, man. It's cold outside.
I know, right? I'm like, when did the clock change over to? Anyway, so right now, where I am,
is it cold outside or not?
Is essentially 6:15, just about. So that would be the time that's recorded. But of course, train of thought, wherever you are, it's maybe, I don't know, let's say it's 10 o'clock in the morning or something. So whenever the database is going to show 18:15, but it's going to show 10:15 when it displays to you because it adjusts for the time zone that you are in. So you get the time zone of the current user, and when you display it, when you download a timestamp from the server, you're displaying it in the local time to them, and that's automatically done for you. You don't really have to do much about this, right? So as long as that, when you download it, when you deserialize it using whatever JSON parsing you're doing, you make sure you're deserializing as a UTC timestamp.
Yes.
Then it knows that there's no time offset attached to that. It's not in local time, and therefore, when you display it, you can say to local essentially, and it will convert for the locale of the user.
It's like right now it's 6:13 in UTC, and that time doesn't matter where in the world you are. That's the time it is, sort of near London. You know, unfortunately, it's been associated with that, but yeah, that's the time there. It's also the time always in Reykjavik. Reykjavik, Iceland doesn't go to DST, and it's always 0. So that's actually what I always put. First thing I do on my phone is I put the local time and I put the time in Reykjavik, because that means it's always UTC time if I need it for something. Yes, that's a old pilot habit, actually. I used to fly planes and stuff for a while. I even know those times all the time. All right. Did that do that? That's this. Just already?
We did that one.
No, we did that. Okay. Sorry. Next one. Last one. Final one.
Last one.
In Flutter project, asset images and network images load at the same time. Shouldn't the asset images load faster? Not for web. Because you're getting the asset images from the web hits. More web hits.
Yeah, I'm going to say, but they do load quicker. I can tell you that right now. They will load quicker.
Assets load quicker on web? Are you sure?
No. I'm agreeing with you. Another thing about saying that Flutter project asset image and network is loaded at the same time. Only on web, because they both come from web, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, he says, shouldn't asset image? And they do. So I think I'm going to say it caveats with your current speed of web to your current speed of disk. I mean, you can have some pretty fast like web access, and what you're seeing is you're getting into the noise, right? Because if you're talking about a very small asset and you're talking about like a 50 megabit connection and you're talking about 150 megabit disk access, that 1/3 time, like that 1 to 2/3 time difference actually isn't all that much, because the file is freaking tiny. So that you're getting down to the noise of it. It took 2 milliseconds to load this thing, right? However, when you're on a rough internet connection with packets being dropped, with a Wi-Fi at a distance, or you're on mobile data connections, trust me, it is not going to load quickly at all. And you will be in a situation where you're like, oh, my assets did load faster. So, pick and choose. You can actually use the Android simulator to Android emulator to simulate different network conditions. So you can make a bad network condition there, and then you can see what your app reacts like when loading an asset from the network, or from an image from the assets on network, and you'll probably get a better representation of what you would see, right? Or use a proxy server, and there's some many proxy servers that give you like various conditions like this and things to test. But yeah,
cool. All right, that was it for questions. Let's call it. Let's go home now. No, let's just do some live coding. Yes.
Yeah, let's just go. That's it. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some live coding for the better part of hopefully 45 minutes. Hopefully not longer, but we'll see. Depends on what we're doing. What are we building today? We were talking about a few different things, weren't we? Has anyone got any coding questions? Coding ideas? Anything you want us to see?
No more questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, we're not taking any questions.
Overlay.
Overlay, we can just play around with overlay, right?
Yeah, overlay.
Let me make a new thing and get this up and working, and then we can all.
I presume that means you're on UTC. Perfect time. Yes. If you're in Iceland, you definitely are on perfect time. I don't know if that's you. All right.
Right. So let's share screen here.
Right. So you have fun, and now I'm going to sleep.
You're heading off. Okay. All right. Well,
Yep.
well, thank you for joining us.
Raph.
Thanks, Raph.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great having you as well.
You and the other Raph
Yeah,
both
guys.
have to go. I get it. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Next week.
Ciao
Cheers.
for now.
Oh, we have to push the button. He can't do that himself. Where is it? About there. There. Okay. Okay. I almost added him back accidentally there.
All right, there we go. Let's do this.
All right. Yes.
My gosh, look at that magic.
Yay.
So,
On a Windows machine. Is it too late to ask questions? Yes, unless it's about
unless it's about what we're coding, I think.
Yeah.
But if you've got some coding ideas, we'll take that. Sure.
Yeah, coding ideas. We are always open to coding ideas.
And all this code that we're writing will always get posted on GIST on GitHub. So feel free to copy and paste it from there at the end of the show. But if you want to follow along and try stuff out, grab out your IDE, and we're going to start seeing what we can build. So hopefully this is font size and everything is big enough for everyone. I can make it bigger if needed. But for the moment, let's see what we've got here. So we'll take off. This is something we built before, so we're just going to get rid of this and just start off with a basic something. An example. And empty column.
Perspective. Camera perspective.
Sorry?
Is that?
Yeah.
Camera perspective.
Camera perspective.
I don't know what that means.
No idea what you mean.
Yep. Ask more. Keep typing.
More things. Right. Okay. Right. Right. So hopefully we've got some a good starting point here, which is basically just an empty example app, and it's going to say example at the top, and we'll go from that. I think. Let's run this in. Run this in debug. Get that building. So we're talking about overlays, right? So I guess a few different things here, right? So the way that most people don't realize actually the way that routes and navigation work. So I'm going to take you on a little journey into the code while it's building. So we have Material App. Material App itself, if we go into the inner workings of Material App, we'll find its build function. Can find it, hopefully. There we go. Build widgets app. See this bit here? And this returns a widgets app, which is the underlying sort of app top level widget. But it is just a widget in itself, right? It just groups a bunch of common functionality together at top level.
Right.
If we go into this and actually look into it, we're going to find its build method. Should we have a break? I don't know if we should have a break. Anyway. So we're going to skip this, but there you go. So inside this, routing is a focus scope with a navigator and passes off those methods. And then it wraps in a builder, wraps in a default text style, makes it stack with a performance overlay if you enable performance overlay, wraps in a semantics debugger if you have that, and so on. It just kind of wraps it all into the various things, uses a title widget. Those that haven't had a title widget, that's how it updates the operating system's notion of what widget you have, what window that you have open. So this updates the title and color and display of what it might be to the operating system. And here you go, like shared app data. Oh, that was the thing I was looking for. How about that? I was looking for this the other day.
And before you get into that, I just want to say that this layering based on conditions of a widget inside a widget inside a widget is exactly what container does, depending on the parameters you give to container. And I did a video on that, and I'm very proud of it. So I'm going to post it, link to it.
Post it in the chat, yeah, for sure. So yeah, so as you can see here, it just wraps it all, and this gives us some basic things that every widget should have, which every app should have, which is like localization support, tap region support, traversal. Like there's a bunch of top level widgets, but in the end, they're not required. You can do whatever you want, right? But these are kind of what is kind of expected of your app, right? Okay, so What else? What else do I want to add to this? Yeah, so the interesting bit here is that the actual inner piece that does the routing is either a router, this is Navigator 2, or a Navigator widget, which is essentially Navigator 1, right? It's a bit more complicated than that, but this is kind of a principal difference between the two when you see it at this level. The Navigator, what is inside Navigator? So there's no child widget here, right? The Navigator chooses what route you're doing and builds the widgets to display on the screen. So in all intents and purposes, if I was to, in fact, we'll do this now. We're going to take out this home screen here, and we're going to take out the material app, and we're going to have a placeholder. This is our entire application. Let's have a look. What do we get?
Ooh.
There we go. Wow, it's amazing.
Ship it.
Okay, done. That's it. Done.
Yeah.
They wanted a box with X, right?
Yes. Placeholder version 2
will
have 2 bucks.
It's a feature, not a bug. It's a feature, not a bug. Right. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a bottom we're going to do app navigation without Navigator. I think that's a good example of showing how overlay works.
Awesome.
In some basic forms of what happens inside of the Flutter repository itself. And this way you get to learn a bit about how Flutter works and a bit about how the system behaves.
Cool.
So, okay. So first of all, we need a Navigator widget, right? So we're going to call this widget
Our Navigator.
Should we troll this slightly? We'll call it Navigator V3. There you go. Why not? And Navigator V3 is going to be given a function, and we need a notion. It's a model that helps us know what screen we're on and manage that. So I guess we'll call that a route V3. Why not? So there's our route V3. And route V3 is going to have a title, and it's going to have, I don't know, a widget builder, which is going to build the widget that we want to put on the screen. What else do we need from a route? I guess we could control the animation of the route from here. So we can have an animation, right?
Widget builder is defined in material?
No, this is just, it's apparently in widgets framework. It's the base thing, but this is just
widgets framework. Yeah, okay.
This is just a function that takes a build context and returns a widget, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Now, if we actually do this, we can do a transition builder, and that will enable us to pass over a child, so we can wrap some funky stuff there, right? Yeah. So effectively, we could say this is it, and we can actually take this a step further and say this is the route that we want. I don't know. I feel like this is probably some good place to start with, right? So we'll add in our little control for this.
Structure.
There we go. So there's our model. All right, we're going to expand upon this, but these are some basic starting points, right? So we have a route, we have a navigator. Now, what we need for navigator is a function that is going to return the route for the given route name. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's essentially what we want. So we'll call this a type def route builder v3. Try not to. I'm putting v3 everywhere so we don't have name collisions, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
good point.
It's an interesting way of doing this. Right. So now we're going to have a final route builder, and we'll just call it what is it, on generate route. Oh, I recognize that. I wonder if we've heard that before. Right. Okay. Okay. So now we've got, if we now put this in our widget tree up here, there's a Navigator v3, and it needs a function that takes a route name and will return a route. Okay. Well, let's make that nullable. So if there's no route, it returns null. So now we can do a switch statement and say route name. And we can say if our route name is slash, then we're going to return back a home widget. Now,
comma.
I'm going to
for switch.
Okay, I'm getting, yeah. Sorry, hang on. Go on. Say again.
He wants a comma there, not a semicolon. You got switch comma. Oh, you're doing case, and you want what are you doing a switch function or a switch statement? I think you do switch the function, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then it's comma where you had a semicolon before. Now it's correct.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, I haven't got there yet. Anyway, right. So what other pages do we want? We have home screen.
Login. every app needs a login.
Sure. Login screen. And let's have like, I don't know, item. Yeah. We could actually do something like make this a bit more funky. Maybe do something like this. I don't know if I want to go that far. Let's call it item. Well, we'll keep things simple. But there's no reason why you couldn't extend this and get pattern matching in there and stuff, right? Anyway, right. And then the else condition being null, right? Okay. Okay. So obviously this isn't complete right now, but this kind of gives you the basis of literally how it works. Now, in the framework, we also have a function that returns a widget called unknown route. I think it is unknown route, and we can make this optional, and we'll make it nullable. This is a function. Sorry. Again, there you go. That returns a widget. I'm just inlining that. There's two different ways of doing the same thing. All right, so when it comes down to rebooting months of work by the course now, why not? We're just doing the basic. We're just doing some basic premises.
Yeah.
So, how do we? First of all, let's build some screens here, basic screens, and we're going to separate off app specific from our implementation period by that line. There you go. So everything below this is going to be our weird navigation thing. And then everything above this is going to be app specific, right? So in this case, we can do, why don't we do this? We'll do a page builder v3. We'll just do that. And this is going to be like some intermediate class, which takes a widget builder. And let's take that. Actually, I'm going to put this below in a second here. Actually, hang on. Do that. There you go. And it's going to take a widget builder, and it's going to have a route v3 create function. And let's do that. We're going to return a route v3, and we're going to have our builder take. So inside the framework, the actual route name is called route settings. So I'm going to quickly, just to kind of like vaguify this a little bit, route settings v3. I'm not trying to go exactly what the framework does. I just need to separate some of the bits off so it simplifies it. So our route and title is going to be the settings for our route, as much as that is whatever that means. And then our route is going to have some settings. Hopefully everyone's following this. I'm trying to go quick because we have a limited amount of time. So when we make a page builder, we'll take in the settings and and then we'll apply that to the route that it returns. So this is going to be settings, and then we want animation, which we can just build in here. So we'll make an animation. Actually, an animation. It's actually kind of like an animation. We'll leave. Well, you know what? We'll have this be generated in here and have this take ownership. I think like a show on hide. I'm going to do it on hide on show or something on show.
And that's going to run your animation forward and backward on the show and hide.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll Really trying to get this in quickly. Yeah. I knew it was going to take fudge. All right. We're not going to do it that way. All right, we'll come back to. We're going to leave animation off the table for a minute, and we'll come back and add animation. I don't really want to go into the too fine. I wanted to get the whole navigation bit working, then we can improve on it.
Right.
So
Hard,
all right,
that's fine.
Exactly right. So and then our route is going to have a builder. This is going to be a transition builder. We'll make everything fade for the minute. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Fade.
Right. So return a fade transition. Damn, it's going to need an animation.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's just have this return child for a minute, and we'll come back to why this is not what I want anyway in a second. Right. Anyway, so okay. So we want a way of satisfying our route builder. Right, I'm going to take you. We're going to go take a look at the framework and see what I can take and well, not take, but what we can take inspiration from. Right. So navigator. Right. So here's navigator on generate route. That's it, a route factory. So this takes our route settings. So we're gonna replicate that actually to this. So that's something I wanted. Settings. Route. I just call it name. That's a bit confusing otherwise. Right, name. Cool. And then we use a page builder. So we could actually wrap, say, final builder equals this. Home. I'm just, it's going to show red here for a second. Right. Obviously, this fails because we haven't changed our definition. So let's go change that. Right, we're getting there. And we'll get to the actual meat of this in a second. This is just like set up some structure, right? Okay, so when you're building an app and you're going to have a, we'll do some stateless switches right now. So we have our home screen. And that's going to have a scaffold on it. And that's going to have an app bar. And a title, next, home, cool, and a body. And inside said body, we're going to have a column with a elevate button. We'll have two elevate buttons, and the first one is going to navigate to login. Why not? And then the second one is going to navigate to item. Just trying to keep this simple. I know, whatever. So how do we want to do navigation, right? So let's create classes for our login screen. Login screen, and login screen is going to be I don't know, scaffold with. I just want to try and put something different on there. All right, let's just do material with a.
It's fairly typical that you'd put a scaffold on the first step of every route separately, right?
Yeah. You don't have to. So scaffold. Okay, let me be clear about a few things. Scaffold does some basic material design things, but it is just material design. If you don't need to take what scaffold is literally just the layout. It just says app bugger to the top, body is here. There might be a bottom nav, and it will handle some of the interactions and panels and overlaps and like animating a few things, but it is purely that. It is purely just a layout object, right?
Okay.
All right, so log in, and then we'll have it. We're going to have an elevate button going back, and that's going to go back. In fact, we'll do I'll just put text back in there for the minute.
What I was just confirming, though, is that the scaffold is generally below the route. So you have one router and you have multiple scaffolds for each route. You have one scaffold for each route.
So there's an interesting thing. You don't have to, like, I've done it multiple different ways. So when you want, for example, if you want like a persistent bottom navigation, if you do your route stuff at the top level, then what's going to happen is when you change screens, that bottom nav is switched out for another navigation bar, which is like, oh my God, I don't want this thing moving. I want to stay there. Right. And on Material app, you have a thing called Builder. And that basically says, lets you a chance to put some wrap some widgets around the navigator, which means you can now do your bottom nav and have it persistent.
Okay.
Which we'll show in a second. Why not? Right. So okay, and we're going to copy this login screen and make one called item screen. And we'll call item details, whatever. And then that's going to have some navigation. So we need a way of performing these navigations with our navigator v3.
Yeah.
So there's a principled way of doing this, which is like you see with that one. You do of. You don't have to do it this way. So we can say of, and we'll say push, and then we'll put our route name that matches login, right? So this is kind of what we want. And the idea being that in our application, we can use the route names that match what we're trying to do and go to for it to go to navigate those things. Then also we need a way of.
We need an of.
Yeah. And then also when we want to pop, well, we want to remove our thing, we do it. So now we need a way of pushing and popping and having a stack of items. So now, okay, so we need to create our of method in our navigator. And our of method is going to return a navigator v3 state. Oops, v3 state. Make the public, why not? Oops. And we're simply going to do context dot return context dot find ancestor state of type navigator.
And that's the magic that chases up the tree until it finds something that matches. Kind of like what inherit widget uses.
So we can do an inheritance widget. I'm choosing not to do it here because it adds complexity. But this basically doing the same thing. It goes up the stack to find the parent widget. The problem with doing this each time is each time you call this function. Now, doing it on this type of thing is actually not bad, right? Because the actions are deliberate, right? They are, I'm pressing a button. It happens like once in a blue moon compared to running this on every frame multiple times in a build. Suddenly, you're traversing the tree so many times. Like your tree might be, say, 100 widgets deep. You've got to do quite a few conditional checks to find the widget that you're looking for. Suddenly, you've got 1,000, 2,000 happening just in one build function. Over the maybe one frame or something. It adds up, right? You want to get your milliseconds down on that frame time. So that's where the dependencies work. The way the dependency works is it does this once, the first time, and it stores the result in a hash map on the widget, and then it goes, oh, there's a matching type. I'll just use that, and it's done. Right? That's literally what it does. Okay, let's come back to this. So, okay, so now we've got this of, we can find the state, and now we need a push function and a pop function to manage that, right? So if you notice, nothing we're doing right now is all model. This is all like domain logic, right? So, okay, so now we've got our home screen. We can push and we can pop. Okay, so our push needs to have a string name of the route that we're going to go to, and we'll pass that off. What else do we want? So going back up to the top, right? So our example application is gonna wrap the item. So we want a login screen, and we want home screen, and then we want item screen. Let's get that. Right. And this is having a problem because, yes, because this is a page route builder. I'm wondering if I just get rid of that builder. It's an extra step that we don't need right now. You can look into how this works inside the framework. There's a whole page system. I don't want to add more complexity where we don't need it. So simply being that this is going to use builder to do its thing. And why are you having a problem? Because these are not functions. Okay. Oops. I think we'll just simplify this with widget. Let's go to widget. Page screen. Let's go to screen. There you go. And too many.
Too many levels of interaction.
Yeah, there we go. Right. All right. So basically, our navigator gets the settings, and we'll have an initial route being given as well, so he knows what we're loading initially. Add that to our widget further down here. There we go. Okay, and then all right, so now we've got, I think that's our setup done, right? So we've got a way of generating our route widgets. We've got a way of returning said thing, which I'm missing. There we go. And it's because it's got an error, it's not formatting. Anyway, right. And we've got each one of our screens, which are really, really basic. Oh, we need to add the pop to that. Let's do that. Okay, so route settings is just name title. We've got a route, something that will hold a route right now. We haven't got to the point where we actually want to use it. And navigator v3 will do all the work. Okay, so when we push, we want a way of having a stack of our route, and then we want a way of managing this on the screen. So right now, we can go really stupid. We can just say, here's a stack, right? Go really stupid, right? Here's a stack. And we're going to loop around each one of the routes in stack and say route.build on text. There you go. And we'll add a build method and oops, not extension. There we go. And that's going to return a widget. And that's going to run the builder that it has. And we don't actually need a transition builder in saying that. Let's just change this back to widget builder. Yeah, okay. Let's do that. Let's just do.
It's nice that we can write code at this level that we can just still finally say, build this widget using this context. And the mechanism is all in place to handle identifying a prior one that we can reuse, swapping them in and out, closing all the ones that we no longer use on that pass. I mean, that we get to tap into all that just by saying, build this. Pretty cool.
So when we push a route, what do we need to do? We need to look at our onGenerate route function. and we're going to pass it a route settings. I'm just going to put the name in there right now. In fact, I'm going to drop. There were some things I was going to show you with title. I'm going to drop that out for the minute because I think it just adds more complexity right now. But you could do a lot more with this. I'm going to leave it at that right now.
Yeah.
So we look up our settings. In fact, we'll take this out of here right now. So settings, and we'll find our route or settings. If the route is null, then we're going to say route equals a default sort of thing where we take the settings, and then we're going to say our builder is widget dot on unknown, and call that.
Do you think Chris Sells, if he was watching the show, would be yelling at us right now saying, turn back, turn back?
Turn back now. Yeah. Well, we're lucky we're not doing V2 right now. That would be a whole different thing.
Yes.
Right. Anyway.
Or is this show working ahead of time secretly why the core team decided to just put Go Router in maintenance mode?
Let's do this. Let's not make it nullable. I'm going to make some slight improvements. We'll just have a default function. Default
Humpday router. I can just see it now.
Right. So we just have a function that returns not found, and we could say something like not found particular route, I guess, if we pass in the route settings to this function as well. I don't know. Let's not worry about it right now. So okay, so we also want to say
not needed for the MVP.
Route v3 current stack last. Make this internal, right? So push, and we just say we do that. Replace with that. Cool. All right. So now we've got our route. We can then just add that route to our stack, and said route is always going to be there because we guarantee that. That's fine.
Ironically, you just made the stack only internal, and that's exactly what the Navigator 1 did that required Navigator 2.
Exactly why and it's also why I'm doing this, right? I want to make sure that we're
wonderful. You're repeating history.
Yeah. Right. And remove last. And then, okay, so given this, I think we're probably going to have a working app.
That's a lot of code before running it. Yes, that's great.
Oh,
files.
All right. So this is actually correct. So I tried to use a material widget. As complained because we don't have an alignment with a directionality widget. This is fine. Yep. This is because we don't have those top level widgets I was talking about. So we'll add those in there. We'll ensure that our navigator wraps it with a directionality.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And we're just going to force the text direction to LTR because we're uncouth.
Yep. Oh boy, it's red.
It's the same. It's the same thing. This is right.
No.
Restart. Okay. It restarted. Okay, so we didn't do the initial route. I didn't do that, right? So we need to do init state, all these fun things. And what I haven't done is say go to the starting route. So we should actually be helpful, right? So we want to say push widget dot initial route. There you go.
Oh, cool. Right, because you're inside the router.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, now what we're going to have no material localizations found. Oh, what depends on that? I guess the framework needs that for one of the widgets I'm using.
The default for text.
App bar needs it. All right, fine. We're just gonna chuck one in there. It's fine. It's just annoying.
And you have text windows too, so it has to. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's just gonna complain. It's fine. Let's go and fix that while we're here. So we'll just add a material localizations. Is it material localization? I thought it was. No, it's just localizations. And that's the implementation. Localizations of, and you give it the list of localization delegates. That's the one. Dot delegate. That's what I want. Delegate, whatever it is. Right. And there's another one. If we go look at material localizations, there's a default one as well. We can just add default for now and keep it simple. Right, and then the locale. Let's platform dispatcher locale. I know where everything's hidden. Right. All right. So, what happened? What did I do? Delegates any? What went wrong? Unused import. Okay. What? Why are we getting an error? Found assertion. It's not true. We need basically saying we need one of the widget localizations, which is the base one. So I guess we're going to have to find out where that implement. I think there's a really.
This is like building a car and then discovering. Oh, you need a drive shaft. Yeah, yeah, you need an axle. Okay. Oh yeah, brakes.
Hey, okay. Let's do this, and then we're also going to add a theme. Why not?
Oh my god, theme! Now you're gonna have to all the theme support.
No, we just need to do that.
Okay, theme data dark.
There we go.
That is awesome. You got an app bar. You got some buttons. Is that your bottom nav that's way up at the top or something, or is it top?
No, that's the app. That's the app bar.
And it has buttons. Part of the app bar.
Main access. No, not main access. Alignment. Let's put those in the center.
Cross-axis stretch. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
look at that.
All right, cross-axis stretch.
Oh, that's gonna make them real wide, but yeah.
No, we could center. We'll just... right. Yeah, but this is the problem.
Centered in the left edge of the column of the page. Yes, you need to wrap the body with a. Is there? Oh yeah, there's still a body because you got a scaffold, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that to expand. I just thought, you know what I could do? I wonder if I can force and expand and fix this top down. So if I go down to here with the stack fit, will that pass through? I don't know. Let's find out. Yes, it does. Oh, it doesn't.
Oh,
this is scaffold. This is scaffold. So yeah. Anyway, let's just wrap that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got those. We could. So let's see what happens. Should we see what happens? Login.
Yeah.
Hey, you're on the login screen.
Wow, but no way back.
Back.
Oh, how do you back button?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a revolution in technology.
Yes, you've invented the navigator from scratch in under an hour.
There you go. Back. Item back. And this is literally like, I mean, I know we're
See, now, if you wanted to hire somebody that has Simon's capabilities, you should make this your test. Write the navigator from scratch.
Good luck with that.
That would filter out the idiots. That would definitely filter out. Actually, filter out 98% of the people. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
unless they happen to work for the Flutter team or they're as crazy as you.
Oh, because I did center, yeah.
Transitions, please. Finally, Marco's asking for the transitions to finally work.
Should we do transitions? Let me just fix these up a little bit. These little templates. Give me 1 second.
I'd have to rewatch this 5 or 6 times before I could probably build Navigator from scratch, doing it only with exactly what you just did.
Well, here's the thing: we've got the video now, and
Yes.
and this will be recorded for prosperity, so to speak.
Yes.
And everyone will be able to take advantage of this and learn, and the code will be up on a GitHub just after the show. We end the show, right? So you can do something like username, text field. Sure. Sign in. Oops.
Sign in.
So log in, and we get some boxes, and
Coco.
let's add this back.
Paddington Bear.
There we go. And blah 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 blah. Password. Log in, and you're back. Cool.
Nice.
So, okay. So now we've got some various bits of content and stuff. Let's add some animation to this, shall we?
Marco's suggesting hero navigation too.
Oh God! Come on, guys. Right. I do need to sleep sometime. We'll add some animation and we'll end it on that because we're getting top of the hour now.
Yep.
So the route itself is, I think, it's going to hold our what's the word? It's going to hold our state. So we'll have a mutable animation controller, and then we'll have an on added function. And when it's added to the stack, we're going to create our controller. And part of this on added means we need a ticket provider. And we could now say something like, oh, well, we want a duration. So we can say final duration, transition duration, and default that to something we like. 18 duration, right? I have some sort of memory. I don't know whether it's photographic, but it's something. Right.
He has a random access memory.
Have like a dispose function that will clean up and I'll dispose my yeah. Right. So we have an on added, and then when we show, well, we want our controller to go forward. And then when we hide, well, we want to go in reverse, I guess. What else do we want? Okay, we want actually wrap this wrap our widget in something. So we'll say a fade transition. Or take yeah, we can take controller. Child. Oops. Oh my goodness me. What am I doing? Right. Okay. And we can do things like what actually happens inside the framework is you get there's a function called like it literally returns an animation double and it says create animation, and then the idea being that by default this returns just like a default tween of actually I think it just returns the controller and underlying mechanism, right? But if you wanted to, we can say curved animation. The parent is the controller, and we'll just do like a easing out. But the idea being that if you wanted to customize your route, you override the create animation function, and then you can create whatever type of and override whatever animation parameters you want. All right, so let's go and there. Right, cool. Okay, so now we've done that. How do we implement the animation? Right, so when we add to the stack, our route is added, and then we say route.onAdded. Vsync would be this. And we'll have this with ticket provider state mixin. Okay, and then when we pop, the remove last returns the route. So we'll say final route, and we'll do route dispose, right? To clean up that animation controller. Now, there's actually an interesting thing here, right? So we want to only dispose and clean up our controller once our reverse animation has finished. So we can actually have these return back.
Finish callback, right?
Future on both of these, let's say, and just good practice, although we probably won't use it on show. And then that's exactly what these actually return. They're actually slightly different. They actually have a they call it animation ticker future. That's the one, and they actually have a few other properties you can play around with and cancel and stuff. But we're not going to use that. So on show, we could have our push wait for it to be shown, or we can even better do something like have a completer and have it pop values even, right? So we could have our route have a T and have it so that when you go into something, it can return a value from the route. Maybe we can do that in a minute, but let's make that another more. Sure. Why not?
I guess you couldn't give it an animation that's infinitely looping because you never get that completion call, right?
Yes, kind of, yeah. So basically, well, it's a bit more complicated than that, I'm afraid. But yeah, on hide. So here's the thing, right? So we want to remove last, but after the route's done its thing. So we say route.last. Stack.last. And then on hide. Then let me bring it out here.
Don't remove last.
Right. So we turn the last route to hide. We do pop, and then once it's hidden, we want to remove our last value from the stack. So we'll do something like route equals this, and then this allows us to say route dot dispose and say stack dot remove this route and dispose of it, and then that is going to go in a set state. So if we're still mounted, because it's asynchronous, then we want to do set state this. Right, looks good. And then on added, we can then do it on show, and that will animate it in. Right. All right. So that is our process. We could have our on added be asynchronous and then show once it's finished, like loading or something, and then you could override it on the route. I don't know. Right. All right. So
is each route there unique in that if I have two items in the stack, it's going to remove the proper one?
Yes, mainly because there's no override to equal, so we're using identity matching.
Okay, sure.
Right. If, however, you removed it and you try and remove again, there's probably some little conditions here that I didn't want to have to deal with right now. So, for example, if you call pop, we start animating. When you call pop again, well, guess what it's going to do? It's going to start the animation all over again because the last stack, we don't update the stack during the pop method. And this is asynchronous. There are ways of getting around that. And that's more about sort of doing self-management. So having things like you would have a state inside the route to say that it's currently popping, or you have a list in here of currently popping routes that you can then ignore when you call pop again, right? Things like that, where you're actually managing the state of which ones you're popping. But right now, in a simple example, I'm not going to go down that route. So, okay, we're starting up again.
Manage a list of wrappers around things that are actually popping. That way you'd have the actual original object for identity.
I'm going to say bool first route or initial route. Initial route is initial route. Let's do that. Is initial route. Value is initial route. Then it's going to be 1. So this is because I just did a hot restart, it faded in. I was like, well, the initial route, we don't want to fade in, right? So if stack is empty, so we'll do it this round, right? So we set up our route. If stack is empty, it's the initial route. And then we add the route, and then we animate the route. Of course, the on-show will do nothing if it's already animated. So if I hot restart now, it shouldn't fade in. It should just be there. Yep, you didn't see it change. I just pressed the button, right? So if I go to here and clear this, right. So I'm going to hot restart and see what happens. Good, nothing. Right. So now if I hit login and sign in, that is actually fading. It's quite quick on screen, so let's see. Let's change our default animation duration to something maybe a bit longer for demonstration purposes. Right, 2 seconds. Let's restart.
Yep.
Login.
Oh,
sign in.
Awesome.
Item.
You can just leave it that way. I'm sure people won't mind. It'll just look cool.
Or just something maybe a bit more realistic, something like 600 milliseconds. I don't know.
It needs an audio with it, so it can go like that.
Okay, and then I guess something that
Star Trek doors opening. Star Trek doors opening. No. Okay.
Oh dear. So this is generally.
This is why I don't design products. I take the design the clients give me because otherwise they'd end up like what I'm talking.
So this is a very simplified version, but what we haven't actually covered, which we wanted to get to, which we're not going to have a chance, is overlay.
That would fit in here somewhere.
So there's a widget called overlay. I'm not going to go into it right now.
Yeah.
But basically, overlay is a better stack, stack of entries that can be managed independently. As it says here, is created by Navigator, Widgets app, and so on. This has benefits over stack. This is stateful, so you don't like call build and then it's there, right? This is an overlay. Is you add and remove from it, and it will manage its widgets basically, and let you manage that nicely. So an overlay entry then has is it opaque, is it transparent? If you put an opaque one on top of already opaque ones, those don't have to be rendered. It knows about this and can deal with it. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that kind of optimize that, but in the end of the day is the overlay state you can see here is a list of entries like our stack. You insert the initial entries when it starts up, and when you go to add an entry, it adds it into the list, and eventually we go find the build method. I can go find it down here somewhere. Here we are, build. what does it do? So this is where it manages some state here. If it's reversed, and fun enough has a theater, which is a list of children, and this ends up being they're pushing some stuff down to a render object for performance probably, but no, I'm kind of want to find this now, but I can't be bothered. Yeah. Anyway, the point here is it will manage the children attached, the render objects attached here in apparently in reverse order. And then this should just lay them out and stack them. I kind of want to have a quick look at the theater stuff. It's been a while. Where's layout? First on stage child, last on stage child. So this knows if they're not on stage, and then appropriately hides them, like a theater, right? Theater stage. They are perform layout. Layout child. This size determine constraints biggest. Find size determine child. I guess the one that determines the size. Lay that out. Children in painting order goes for each one and calls layout on it. I mean, there's not rocket science here. This is like the expected behavior. And then paint pushes a clip rect for each one, and for the whole thing, and paints all the children. And this is going to go to like the visit children or whatever, and there's a standard patterns of this inherits from which paints. But yeah, all right. Well, there you go.
So we can save that for next week to do the overlay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in general, this is a simplified version, right? But I think there's a lot to go away with. There's also something else in here which I was going to do, I realized, and that is the back behavior, right? So identifying that there is a need to change to support the Android back behavior, right, and things like that, and
right,
even having like the notion that of detecting the current, like I put current in here, we don't use this, but also saying like something like ball can pop right on the on this, and basically saying stack is not empty, then we can pop, right? So some simple things like this where I'm going to put one. I'll put one thing in here briefly right now because it's a quick thing to add, and we'll say stateless app bar v3. I don't know, just do that.
Yeah,
with a child in it, and wired. We might well do title because that's kind of what it's called, but sure. And this can be a piece of material that is size box. Sure, I'm just gonna do this because I just want to get going on this. But K toolbar, sure. Row, children, title, and what we want to do is say if the current thing can be popped, then we'll put a back icon in.
The back
and then back button icon. There we go. Actually, back button is what we want. And then when you press that back button, we'll do navigator v3 navigator.
Context pop.
Yep. Which is like the default behavior, of course, but that will do. So then we just need to know, well, how do we know when we need to right, so we can do that. Right now, the problem here is the toolbar won't know. It only knows when it's built if you can pop, right? So maybe we adjust the stack and it's not live. We don't have any sort of propagation of state at the moment. We could do that kind of simply, like at the moment, our navigator state is the thing that holds the state. If we lifted it out into like a controller, we could have like navigator notifier, right? Extends change notifier, right? And then this can hold the stack, right? Hold on. And then our push and pop end up being like all these things that actually work with that end up being more of a function of the. I'm not going to make the change now because it's more work and we don't need to do that right now. But if you're to do that, then basically your listening of the UI can then be attached to the fact that that state might change. However, if we do this and go app bar v3 and go up to the top, pop out app bar v3 in place of the current widgets, it was complaining for a reason, and I will fix that in just 2 seconds. So if you want to use something as an app bar, you need to implement the preferred size widget, which is an interface that tells the scaffold how big it is. I think this is like one of the worst ideas ever. I really don't like it. It is just stupid in my opinion. In my humble opinion, IMHO. So, but we're here now, and you got to deal with it. I honestly I couldn't tell you what was going through people's mind. I guess it made sense at the time. Obviously, all programming does at the time, but Anyway, right. Oh, how about that? No overlay widget found for tooltips. Okay, well we better put an overlay in.
Oh no, tooltips.
We're just going to do this because it's easier.
Yes.
I'm being Yeah.
So we got overlay in here despite us mostly skipping it. Yes, finally overlay. Thank you, Simon.
What's this?
Finally overlay after all, after the 90 minutes of the navigator.
Hang on. What's going wrong here? Theme, yes. Oh. I'm not sure what happened there, but okay. There we go. I think the builder only needs the context now. Okay, so this means that when we first start up, we're going to get this is not going to work the way I want it to. Our set state is not going to adjust the state of this. We need a stateful widget to do that, which is kind of annoying.
It's probably the way it's solved in the official one, though, right? It's a stateful widget at the navigator level.
Why did we? You needed it for the back button. I think this is why we needed it. Back button wants to use a tooltip and action stuff. All right, so before we start adding all these material widgets and having to satisfy all that stuff, okay, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put back button. We're going to do icon button.
Yeah, we're back.
And a card with a back icon, back button icon. There you go. This returns a widget, doesn't it? Based on the platform. Oh, it's so annoying. God, damn. Right, I'm just gonna put an icon in there. Icon stop.
Just an icon. Just
arrow, back arrow back. That'll do. Sure.
Just put a scribble in there.
I really don't mind. This is just to avoid the need. So let me. We can solve this up here by what we're doing with a stateful builder, which would just wrap this whole thing as stateful builder, and then it's still we call stateful builder set state in these two places where we normally call set state on this widget, but it's just not worth the hassle just to achieve this right now.
And I still think that the moment you call it a stateful builder, you might as well make it a stateful widget because you probably will want init state and dispose eventually too.
Yeah. So and then what action type.
So for me, the stateful builder is sort of a gesture. It's not. It's just. It's so just for show, just to make it complete.
Do we have an app bar theme dot? Ugh.
Yeah, we
Why is
had an overlay for a second, and now it's gone again. Right? Sorry, Simon. Next week we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Just trying to get the
I'm
back
just
button
being
working.
really quick with what I'm trying to do here, just to get us over the line and get us back to where we were.
Yep. We're at 2.5
Project
hours.
one, I'm not explaining as I go.
It's self-evident. It's code.
Yeah, it talks for itself, right? It's just simple.
Yes,
Come on,
right.
It's 300 lines. It's simple, right?
You can look any of this up in the API description. Just ask ChatGPT. That'll tell you. Just type the whole thing in. I don't know how well it would do well with this, explaining it. Gemini would probably do pretty good.
It's kind of annoying. I guess we'll do that for now, just to make life easy. So it's interesting that can pop is. Oh no, it says length is greater than 1. Yeah, that's better. And then
yes.
And then our widget is going to need and then let's just wrap this, and then we're done then. That's we could go on forever here.
And we have from time to time.
From time to time, right?
Yes.
I think this is a good little example.
That's a good chunk. I learned a lot watching you build the navigator from scratch. It was cool. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. Watch it so I can pause it and then go off and look at the code that you're looking at in these other classes.
No. Okay. So it's text theme, title, medium, large. Sure, let's do that. Cool. So if I go into login, now we have a back icon. I can tap it and it takes me back.
Woohoo! My God, that is so cool. That is so cool. And it only took what 337 lines of code. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, I know how like the frameworks and things can be intimidating. It's about trying to look through all the weeds, and all that extra stuff. Like, yes, there are things that this definitely doesn't do, right? But it's very unique at what it does what it needs to do. Like the framework is there to handle so many different use cases that we're not handling here, right? Like all of we just said, like tooltips, localizations. We were talking about semantics. There's like zero semantical stuff going on here, right? Like it's like there's a bunch of things that you get for free from the framework, right? So use the framework. But I think this is kind of around the idea that there's certain things that you can get away with from the platform. I'm actually going to remove these widgets from here and change back to a stack on purpose. Bear with. I'm going to put another widget in here. Try and keep things simple.
Well, it's like you hardwired left to right earlier because we didn't want to have to figure out what directionality it was going to be. That worked fine for what we were doing. We didn't put translations in or anything like that. No hooks for that.
And this is it's essentially a simplistic implementation of what the top level widgets app does, raw material app, right? It's not really part of the navigator. We kind of stuffed it in there. So
widgets app. Cute.
I'm gonna put that up at the top. Yeah. So it's the same. I'm just showing this separation between what is considered the app top level and what navigator is, right? Now, it just so happens that widgets app builds a navigator for us, right? So if I was to take, this is literally how it works in the framework, right? So if I go in here, I'm putting navigator v3 here, And then Navigator requires a couple of different parameters. Initial route and on generate route. So if I go grab these quickly from here, and then we're going to chuck them in here instead of child. It just passes them over, right? This is literally how the route works. It just takes those. It does a little thing in here. So the on unknown route actually bit is done by the widgets, by the widgets app. And oh yeah, it's going to complain up here because we don't have the right parameters. So there's another thing there's another brief thing I'm going to do actually before I go, because I feel like it's really simple and it explains a little bit more. So the on generate route, if we made this nullable, we could also have a map of bring to widget builder. And this is routes, right? Make that nullable as well. And then we'll just say if routes is not equal null, then we'll supply our own function. Otherwise, it's by the on. Well, maybe it's more like if you specify on generate route, then it will use that. Otherwise, we'll make our own function. Oh, no, wrong one. That's v3. Settings and the point to this is the default on generate route. Where did I put that? It's up here. It's essentially the same thing. Where's my wrong direction, Simon? No, that's right. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, here, drop it in there. And basically, what we're doing. Why is this complaining? Because that means an exclamation mark. Right. So basically what we're doing here is we just look it up and say screen is going to be widget.routes this, right? I said widget, but it's routes this. That's the builder, sorry. And then if build is not null, then we pass that across. And that's simply what the platform does internally right now. So that way, instead of having to pass in on generate route, you can pass one or the other. So you can do it. So if I restart now, it's going to continue to function as expected, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ba-bam, ba-bam. It's all working. It's fine. Now, if I take this map out here and instead supply it as a map of route name to widget builder, which is effectively what you'll see in the framework, and get rid of this.
That input parameter is context, right?
Sorry?
The input parameter that you're putting underscore for as context, right?
Yeah, that's context, yeah.
Okay.
Right, and there you go. It's exactly the same. Nothing's changed.
Cool.
Right?
Cool.
So this is essentially how, here's my initial route. So I'm going to show this screen, and then you can navigate to any one of these other screens. And that's it. We built a navigator.
Yay. Ship it.
So obviously there's certain things that the framework, this is why this becomes a little bit more you can't use any of the material widgets, right, that deal with navigation at all, because of course they're going to look for the navigator one. We can't use any other libraries that depend on navigator or anything. And now hopefully if proper libraries are done right, they shouldn't need those things, right? Like they should defer to a callback, and then you and your callback, you deal with how you want to navigate or do it. But yeah, so there you go. So there's
So you're talking about things like the show dialog function needs to have a navigator, right?
Yeah. So for example, let's just show that, right? So here on the item screen, I'll put a button, and we'll call the button get more, whatever, right? And in here, if we wanted to say show dialogue, right?
Yep.
You can call the function, right? Return dialogue. And it's got like a child text content, whatever, right?
Mhm.
I think we have actions, didn't we? Was that in something else? Let's just do let's just do that, right? And restart. So item, get more. Oh no, it broke.
It blows up.
It blows up. And look, navigator operation requested in context does not include a navigator.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because those functions inside the framework expect the default navigator to exist. Now, the way Navigator 2 works is it still uses Navigator 1 under the hood, right? It's just how it does the stack management, its routing is different. It uses the Navigator Pages API, which is more implicit. But yeah, I mean, so this I'm going to comment this out, of course, right? And say, note, this won't work because it requires Navigator 1. Yeah. All right. That's our stopping point. Right. Let's do you want to dance and do the jig for a second, and I'll get this up on a gist for everyone. All right, not literally. Right, we've got Humpday. It's my file name.
Yeah. 20.
How's everyone doing in the chat?
0205. Oh, it's 2 and 5 of 2025. That's cool.
You know what's we're gonna be soon on all those dates, all those fun dates again. What are we calling this? Navigator V3? Sure.
Yeah.
Navigator, custom navigator example.
The penultimate navigator. We're still not quite there.
It is the 5th of February.
That's my favorite misused word. People will saying penultimate when they really mean ultimate.
That sounds cool, right? Penultimate.
Penultimate is like the letter Y in the alphabet. It's the next to last. Ultimate would be Z.
Right. Right.
Or Z, as you say over there. For some crazy reason.
Right. The gist is now Publico.
All right. Pasting.
And I will pop the link in the chat for everyone.
Awesome. I'm just saying hello and goodbye to Christian, probably. He's probably hanging out, or at least he's watching all this again.
So feel free to go grab the code and have a play.
And we'll do overlay next week, probably, unless we get distracted by something shinier. Because shiny objects and us, we go way back.
If something better comes along, we'll just say better, right? Otherwise, we'll continue playing with that if everyone wants.
Yeah, overlay sounds like fun. Actually, I want to see how overlay sounds like it's like a nested navigator, except it sits on top rather than inside.
It's even more complicated than that, but we won't go there.
Oh wow, more complicated than that. What a deal!
So,
all right,
we will see. Okay, Ron,
right.
Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.
See you next week. Bye.